came to Logic's College Park, I'm going to be completely honest, I really enjoyed this album. Firstly, the sound itself is incredible. There were no duds instrumentally. I also enjoyed the fact that in this album there's quite a lot of guitar playing throughout some of these tracks. And I really enjoyed that, as you don't really hear guitar on most rap songs, especially in the mainstream anyway. So that was something interesting. I do enjoy that Logic isn't only rapping about the hate he gets or being great at rap. He's definitely diving more into this time. It's something I really am quite glad, as I feel like not only Logic but a lot of rappers these days do talk about the hate they get or just how great they are. And it's definitely a topic we need to simmer down. And then when it came to the concept, yeah, I really loved the skits. They definitely were very funny. I enjoyed the dialogue between Logic and his friends. Now, if I'm being very critical, I have to be honest. I personally feel like the concept of the album is slightly muddy, as I was under the impression that the album would be about Logic going from College Park to DC to do a gig, and through the skits themselves, yes, that is the concept. But I felt like a lot of the tracks, it wasn't, as we're hearing Logic talk about him in 2023 or even events that happened after 2011. So I'm quite confused. Now I could be wrong, and I'll put my hands up and admit that maybe I got the concept wrong. But if I am right, then it's very hard to keep up. It's a bit confusing as he's jumping between 2023 to 2011. Another thing is, I feel like whilst yes I do enjoy the skits, they do take up a lot of the runtime through certain songs, and it does take away the replayability. Not for all songs, but just a few. And then lastly, I feel like there's 3 particular songs that are very short, and instrumentals as well as skits take over the runtime, and I felt like it would have been nicer if Logic was rapping more on these 3 particular tracks. But criticisms aside, let's dive into the track list. So first of all, we get Cruising Through the Universe featuring the RZA, which starts off with a beautiful guitar, and then we hear Logic singing. The way he's singing as well as the guitar gives me Gorillaz vibes, especially like the early days, but again, that's just me. I will say also on this song the drums sound very weird, definitely not what you hear from a usual Logic track, but I enjoyed it anyway. When he starts rapping, because his voice is being pitched up and down, it reminded me of the rapper whose name I forgot, who does the theme tune for Jay and Silent Bob Get Old podcast. Don't know why, it just reminded me of that. Logic's verse was okay, but RZA was definitely the one you're wanting to listen to. His was a very good verse, and then it starts to fade out and we realise that this is a dream. He's back in 2011, he's being woken up by Big Lembo telling him, dude, we've got a concert to go to, hence the concept. That's really cool. Next we get Wake Up, where we return to Logic's old somewhat style of beats. That's not a slander whatsoever, I really enjoyed it. We get Logic's rapping, he's somewhat looking back at 2011 and how he could have easily been either murdered or joined the crime that was surrounding him at the time, and he's happy that he's pursued rap instead. He's just talking about the crime that went around him at that time, and I found that very interesting. And then it ends with Lucy Rose telling us more about the concept that's happening throughout the album. Very much enjoyed that. And then next we get Lightsabers, which again is a great track. Love the beat, love the hook. We get Logic saying some intriguing and inspirational lyrics as he's talking about not giving up your dream just for a 9 to 5, and yes, you be able to pay bills, but if you don't love your job, what's the point? Something along those lines. I thought that was a really great lyric. Then halfway through the song, we somewhat get 2011 Logic and 2023 Logic talking and meeting, and his present day self is telling him, don't do it for fame, don't do it for money. And then 2011 Logic is saying, yeah, but didn't you do that? Didn't you do it for money? Didn't you do it for fame? And then we get 2023 Logic just saying, whilst I somewhat did do it for fame and money, I did it for passion, I did it for this and that and that. It's really interesting. And then we get probably my favourite Castro verse on this album, ending it off just rapping about him wanting to be famous. We learn a bit more about him. I thought that was really great. Definitely a great trilogy to start with. Next we get Clone Wars, which I think is an okay track. I think the instrumentation was alright. I think Logic, what he rapped about at the beginning, was interesting as well. He's very honest about how he wanted to be like other rappers, have their success, but then come to the realisation that he would rather be Logic, as no one could take that away from him, and I thought that was somewhat respectable. He then touches on topics of originality and how technically you can't really be original these days because there's 12 bars to a scale or something along those lines. I didn't quite understand what he was trying. I feel like he was trying to justify ripping on other artists, but that's just me. I thought it had a somewhat interesting hook, but then too much of instrumentation. I thought the skit itself had funny moments, really unnecessary. Next we move on to Red Pill 7, which is probably one of my favourite tracks on this album. We get a great beat that changes through multiple times and great harmonies as well. Logic just really diving into his personal stuff. He's talking about his derealization, which he has mentioned in interviews before, but I don't think he's ever mentioned on records. That's really interesting. As well as that, he does a lot of rap flexing in the game and how he got to rap with Eminem. If he can, he'll bring the woo out from Madison Square Garden. Cool shit like that. Even goes on to his nerd shit, which I really did appreciate, especially when it came to Futurama. So yeah, I really enjoyed this track. Next was Playwright, which I do like. It is a good song, but I feel like, again, like with Clone Wars, very short, and this one Logic did preview, and well, I'm not mad at that because it is a great track. I really enjoyed what Logic gave us in the way of verses, talking about how he's not in competition with everyone, as he wants everyone who's above or below him or in the same category to succeed. And I thought that was really cool. I do love the hook and the beat as well, and the way Logic somewhat sings towards the end of the track is quite nice. And then we get a skit introducing us to Castro in this somewhat skit world, and then the skit somewhat transitions into the next song, which I really do enjoy. That song being Gaithersburg Freestyle, which I love the beat. I think Logic, Castro and Big Lambo do a great job. No slander to the other two artists. I feel like they did a really good job rapping wise. Energy wise, I just didn't get much out of compared to Big Lambo and Logic, who really brought their energy on this. Still think it's a great track, definitely go listen. And there's a somewhat small transition from this song to the next song that I've been Incipio. Again, Incipio, Logic did preview the entire raps on this, which I'm a little bit annoyed, as I wish there was more. I do enjoy the beat, I enjoy what Logic's doing, but after a minute and 2 seconds, that is all we get from Logic, and then it goes into a long instrumentation and then a somewhat unneeded skit from Lucy Rose, just talking about the importance of life. Felt like it was a Talia interlude, personally. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not the biggest fan of it. But then we move on to what is possibly my favourite song on this album, that being Self-Medications. Not only is it a great beat, I think it's got a really catchy hook as well, but it's just so good. Logic coming in with a really good first verse, just talking about somewhat his life nowadays, and making beats, how he would jump on a track and how he relaxes from time to time. Found that very interesting. Then we get Redman, who really jumps in with the metaphors, similes, really doing a great job as well. I think he executed it. And the one that surprised me the most was Seth MacFarlane, who admittedly I was wary of what he was going to do on this track, but honest to God, he was definitely amazing on this track. With his singing, it's beautiful, and it's accompanied by Lucy Rose doing backing harmonies, which again was really beautiful. I just enjoyed it so much. What follows is Shimmy, featuring Joey Badass. Now, I do like the song. I think it's got a catchy hook. I love the beat. I feel like Logic wasn't the best on this track. I thought Joey Badass definitely did a better job, but still worth listening to. Next is Paradise 2, which I do have a few issues with. First of all, it's a sequel to one of my favourite songs off the Tits album, so there's a lot of high expectations, and sadly I don't think it executes it any depth possible. I think if he didn't name it Paradise 2, I wouldn't have thought so much about it. I do think it's a good track. I do love the fact that the first part reminds me of Dad Bod in a way. He's talking about being himself and all that. He does have some cool lines like Lord of the Rings, bling, shine like Elijah Wood, which I thought was quite cool. Definitely enjoyed that. That's not my issue with it. It's that afterwards we get this skit which is actually longer than the song itself. Go on. Skit's funny, but the fact it goes on for so long is kind of annoying. I will take points away from my criticisms because Logic did have the foresight to release this as a single first, so have no real hatred towards it. After this we get a great hype track, that being Come On Down, where Jordan Harris starts off the song introducing about a somewhat rapper called Daquan selling his soul to be famous, and then the hook comes in, it's so good. We then get Logic jumping in. I think he's either being this Daquan rapper or he is being an ignorant version of himself. The reason I say this is because Logic not only talks about selling drugs, talks about somewhat ignoring his feelings, and claiming that therapy is only for white people. It's such a great hype track. I love the beat, the harmonies towards the end with Lucy Rose again, doing a great job. After that, it's another gem, that being Village Slum, where we get, starting off with a guitar beat, just guitar being played beautifully, and then we get a beautiful sample and cool ass drums, and then we get Logic talking real personal as he's talking about his worries of being addicted to alcohol. It's somewhat a love-hate relationship, as he knows the dangers that it could do, and obviously with the position he's in, it's even more damaging as he doesn't want to lose anything that he's built. And he talks about how his family members suffered through alcohol, how he used to go to AA with his parents and hear all these people. And so that's definitely damaging your mindset. I really found that very interesting, how Logic really dives deep into his personal issues. And it's something we don't really hear about him. We've heard about his family members being addicted to crack and alcohol substances, but the fact that he is scared of being like them as well, that's really interesting. And then afterwards we get a skit of Logic in 2011 smoking weed, somewhat under peer pressure, and the skit itself is very funny, but at the same time we're finding out that Logic, even back in those days, was really hesitant about touching anything substance wise. And then it has the smoothest transition into the song Highlife. I'll admit, Highlife at first was sounding a bit cheesy to me. It kind of gave me Everyday with him and Marshmallow vibes, but I really enjoyed it afterwards. It got after a few listens, and I think the beat is quite hard, especially the drums. You get a beautiful guitar in the background, and then because of what happened in the previous skit, he's obviously talking about getting high, and this is definitely set in his later years, as we now know he smokes weed. And so I really found this track interesting. I loved it. I think it's very smooth, especially with the subject matter. We then move swiftly on to the coordinates of College Park, and we get quite a cool ass beat, even though there's these squeaking bats in the background, which is slightly annoying. But putting that aside, I think the beat was brilliant. And then we get Logic and his fellow Rat Pack members, that being Castro and Big Lembo, somewhat rapping about their fame and struggles to get there. And then afterwards we move swiftly to Ayo, which is Logic somewhat saying a fuck you to the haters in the smoothest way possible. It's such a catchy hook. I love the beat on this. And then during the hook we get Pimp C's sample returning, which, if you know, it was used in Man I Is from the No Pressure album, as well as a song in his previous work during the mixtape era. And then after the first hook we get Bun B coming in with a smooth but sadly short verse. Definitely did a great job. And then afterwards we get Logic congratulating and thanking the audience for bringing him on stage, claiming he'll never change. And then it kicks into the last but definitely not least track, that being Lightyear. First we get Logic, which again I'm interpreting as him in 2011 saying he's never going to sell out, he's never going to be this, he's never going to be that. Then we get his modern version itself saying, yes, I may have sold out, but I didn't sell out like you. I did this. He promoted peace, love and positivity. He actually promoted a message through the radio rather than just, sell out for money. Which I think really good point. He did do that. And as well as that, as he is saying all this, he really is diving into his lyrical bag. But you can hear the beat changing until it changes to Rigor Mortis by Kendrick Lamar, going back to the 2011 theme. And honestly, he does a brilliant job on that track. He kills it and he stays on it on perfection. And sad it ends so short, but we do get some great lyricism. We then do get an annoying instrumentation for a bit, and then a long skit which takes up a lot of the runtime. There's a bit of a skit that's between Lembo and Logic, somewhat talking about Logic worried that he will have to stay the same as a rapper, and he won't be able to do all the things he wants until Lembo says, yo, if the fans love you, they'll be with you every step of the way. And then we get the song Lightyear, which is beautiful. We get Logic singing, we get a great guitar, and it's so great but so short at the same time. And that is how the album ends. And overall, I think it's a really great album. Whilst I would say the concept is slightly muddy and the skits do go on for a bit too long, I love Logic and his rapping ability. He creates great beats, great and catchy hooks, and honestly, even his singing is good. Something that 2 years ago I would definitely not be saying. Is this album good? It is great. Rating wise, I would say it's an 8 out of 10. Now, recommendations, obviously Logic and his whole discography, but I'm going to be recommending a YouTuber and YouTube videos. The YouTuber is Fitz Record. Great YouTuber, does a lot for Logic. He is to Logic what E.T. Lifestyle is to Eminem. Definitely recommend his channel, he does a lot of work. He puts in the effort as well. Anything Logic uploads, maybe a day, maybe even less than that, he'll have a video about it. Definitely do give him the respect he deserves. Next is YouTube videos. The first one is a video I did on my older channel, TV Watcher 1989. On that video, it's basically Logic just answering a question I asked him during a stream about working with the great Kevin Smith. And then I did a video on my channel not too long ago analysing the music video for Highlife, which was directed by Kevin Smith, and so there's quite a lot of Clerks references as well as references to Logic and his music, and then we get to see cameos from Logic's crew as well as Kevin Smith's crew. Definitely go check those out. Those are my recommendations. This has been my review. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed, please like and subscribe. But as always, thank you. Have a good day.